Welcome to my Expat Stories. Today's letter comes from Ray, 54. He runs a print shop in Brighton, and he has a precise eye for colour, for composition, for the exact moment something is right. He went to Cebu City and found something that was right. He just never quite acted on it. And one evening in a bar, a man who barely knew either of them mentioned something in passing, the way you mentioned the weather, and Ray had to sit there and receive it like it was nothing. If you've ever let something real slip through your hands because the timing was never quite right, smash the like and subscribe button. Because Ray knows exactly what that costs. Here's Ray. I'll tell you something about printing. About the work, I mean. You spend all day managing colour, getting the red to be the right red, the white to hold its weight against the background, the whole image to land the way it was supposed to land. And after 18 years of it, you develop a kind of intolerance for things that are almost right. Almost right isn't right. Almost right is wrong with better lighting. You see it immediately, and it bothers you in a way that's difficult to explain to people who don't do the work. I'm Ray, 54, Brighton. I do the lot. Large format, vehicle wraps, shop signage, exhibition boards, the occasional wedding banner. I always slightly regret agreeing to. It's physical work more than people expect. You're on your feet, you're handling material, you're loading substrate into machines the size of a small car. By Friday evening, my back knows about it. I went to Cebu City because a customer of mine kept going back, said it had a texture to it that other places didn't. That word stuck with me. Texture. I understood what he meant even without having been. Some places are smooth, built for tourists. Everything surface, nothing underneath. He said Cebu had layers, had a life going on that wasn't performing itself for visitors. I booked 2 weeks and landed in the humidity and the noise and the diesel smell of a city that absolutely had no interest in performing itself for me, and I thought, yes, this is what he meant. I stayed at a small hotel near Colin Street. Not a resort, not a backpacker place, just a clean, quiet building with ceiling fans in the corridors, and a front desk staffed by 2 people on rotation, and a breakfast room that smelled of garlic rice from 6 in the morning. The kind of place that runs on routine rather than hospitality theatre. Grace was on the front desk the morning I arrived. She checked me in with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times and was still doing it with full attention, which is rarer than it sounds. She pronounced my name correctly from the booking. Not Rai, just Ray, clean and right, and handed me the key card and told me the breakfast hours and said if I needed anything to ask. No performance, no tourism smile held 3 beats too long. Just a person doing her job with her whole self in it. I noticed. The printer's eye. Almost right isn't right, and she was exactly right in a way I couldn't immediately account for. The first 3 days were tourist days. I hired a tricycle driver called Boy who charged a flat rate and knew every street and had strong opinions about San Miguel versus Red Horse that he shared freely and at length. We went to the old city, the Basilica, with its smell of candle wax and cold stone, the streets around Colon where the noise built in layers, jeepneys and tricycles and the bass from a speaker somewhere above a shop door, the whole city in constant conversation with itself. I ate at a carinderia on a side street where the food came in steel trays behind glass and you pointed at what you wanted and sat on a plastic chair at a plastic table, and it tasted like it had been cooking since before you arrived. Deep and slow, and nothing like anything in Brighton. I came back each evening through the lobby. Grace wasn't always there. Sometimes a young man called Michael was on the desk, quiet and efficient in his own way. But when she was there, she'd glance up and there'd be a moment. Nothing dramatic, just a register, the slight adjustment of attention that happens when one person notices another has come back. And I'd say something small. How was your day? Is the rain coming? And she'd answer properly, not the scripted answer, the real one. By the 4th evening, she told me the best place for grilled fish was not where Boy had been taking me. She said this with the directness of someone correcting a small wrong. She named a place near the pier, said ask for the tanig, said don't let them give you the tourist portion, tell them you want what the locals order. I wrote it on my phone. She watched me write it and said, you actually wrote it down. I'm a printer. I write everything down. She smiled. Not the work smile, the other one. Something shifted. I felt it the way you feel a colour temperature change. Not dramatic, just the whole tone of the light going slightly warmer, and you look up from what you're doing and you notice. I found the place near the pier. The tanig came on a banana leaf with rice and a small dish of vinegar and chilly, and the fish was white and clean and tasted of the sea it had come out of that morning. I sat there as the light went gold over the water, and the pump boats moved in the harbour, and the air smelled of salt and charcoal, an outboard motor, and I thought about Grace knowing this place was here and pointing me towards it, and felt something I recognised as gratitude, but was already edging towards something else. I went back to the hotel and told her it was exactly right. She said, "I know, that was the moment. If I'm being honest about it, and I'm trying to be honest about everything here, that was the moment I should have understood what was happening, what was already happening." 2 words completely ordinary, said with a slight tilt of the head and complete self-possession. I know, not pleased with herself, not performing confidence, just certain. The way you're certain about things you simply know. I extended the trip by 5 days that night, told myself it was because I hadn't seen enough of the city, because Boy still had places on the list, because the weather had been overcast and I wanted some sun before I left. All of that was true. None of it was why. The last morning of the extended stay, she was on the early shift. 6 a.m, the breakfast room already warm, the smell of garlic rice and fresh coffee coming through the corridor. I'd been up since 5, couldn't sleep. That particular restlessness you get the morning before a long flight, when your body already knows something your head hasn't fully processed yet. She was behind the desk when I came down with my bag. She looked at the bag, then at me, then back at her screen. She said, "Safe travels, Ray. Not have a nice trip. Not hope you enjoyed your stay. Safe travels." The specific weight of those 2 words, the care in them, the way they acknowledged that getting somewhere and back in one piece was a thing worth wishing for rather than assuming. I stood there in the cool lobby air with my bag at my feet and the ceiling fan turning overhead and the sound of a jeepney starting up outside, and I thought, I don't want to leave. I left. The flight home was 11 hours, and I spent most of it looking at the back of the seat in front of me, thinking about colour temperature, and a woman who wrote things right and knew where the good fish was. We were messaging before I cleared customs at Gatwick. That's how it started. How the in-between started. The long thread of daily contact that built itself into the structure of my life so quietly, I barely noticed it happening, until the structure was load-bearing. She'd message in the mornings her time, evenings mine after her shift. Not long messages, just present ones. The kind that said, "I'm here, you're there. This thread between us is real." She'd tell me about the hotel, a difficult guest, a funny thing Michael had said, the rain coming off the mountains and hitting the city in one solid wall, like a curtain dropping. I'd tell her about the shop, a vehicle wrap that had come out slightly wrong, and I'd done it again at cost because slightly wrong wasn't something I could send out the door. She said, "I know," that exact phrase again, and it landed the same way it had in the lobby. She understood the thing, underneath the thing. The video call started 3 weeks after I got back. Sunday mornings my time, Sunday evenings hers. She'd cook while we talked. I could hear the oil in the pan, the sharp hiss when something hit the heat. Smell it almost. The garlic and the vinegar. She showed me a flat once, walking the phone around. A small tidy place with a window that looked onto a courtyard and a shelf of paperbacks she'd collected over years. Spines faded from the heat. I showed her the shop on a quiet Sunday before it opened. Walked her through the big Roland printer, the laminator, the cutting table scarred with 18 years of blade marks. She said it smelled like work. I said it smelled like ink and heat and substrate. And she said, yes, that's what I mean. It smells like actual work and there's nothing wrong with that. I went back 4 months after the first trip. Different season, different light. The city in the wet had a different smell. The rain brought up the earth under the concrete, something green and deep underneath the diesel, and the streets steamed gently after each downpour. She met me outside the hotel on her day off, which she'd rearranged without telling me until she mentioned it in passing. And something about that small rearranged day off sat in my chest for the rest of the trip. We spent 4 days together properly. Not tourist days. Her days. The market she went to on Saturday mornings. Tight corridors between stalls. The smell of raw fish and cut mango and something faintly floral from the flower stall near the entrance. Her moving through it with the ease of someone who knew exactly where everything was and exactly what it should cost. A Sunday with her cousin's family in a house in the hills above the city. The air cooler up there. Actual cool air with some weight to it. Kids running on a concrete yard while the adults ate and talked. And I sat and mostly listened and felt for a few hours, like a person who belonged somewhere specific. She translated occasionally, leaning towards me, her voice low. Not performing inclusion, just making sure I wasn't lost. The evening before I left, we sat on the roof terrace of a bar near the waterfront. The city spread below us, the harbour lights reflecting on the water, a container ship moving slowly across the dark. She had a beer she barely touched. I had two I drank too fast. And at some point she said quietly, not looking at me, "When are you coming back?" "Not are you coming back?" "When?" I said, "Soon. Give me a few months to sort some things out. The shop needed a new printer, a significant outlay. Timing wasn't right to be travelling." I said it all, and it was all true. And she nodded and looked at the container ship and didn't say anything else about it. I should have said something else. Something that matched the weight of the question she'd actually asked. She wasn't asking about flights, she was asking about us. Whether there was an us, whether the Sunday morning calls and the rearranged day off and the low translation at her cousin's table added up to something I was willing to name. I named the printer instead. Talked about the outlay. Talked about the shop. She finished her beer. We walked back to the hotel. She said goodnight in the lobby, the same lobby where it had started, the ceiling fan turning overhead, and went home. That was the second visit. The third visit was 6 months after that. Longer gap than I'd said. Circumstances at the shop. A member of staff left and I was covering. All real. All true. And each time something was real and true and in the way, I chose it over booking the flight. And somewhere across the other side of the world, Grace was receiving that choice without me ever making it explicit. The calls continued. The messages continued. But somewhere in the middle of the third visit, I noticed something. Not dramatic. Just a shift in register, like a colour balance moving by 2 degrees. She was warm. She was Grace. But there was a quality to her attention that had changed. Or not changed, that's not right. Thinned slightly. Like a print that's lost a fraction of its saturation. You wouldn't see it if you didn't have the eye for it. I had the eye for it, and I saw it, and I told myself she was tired. Long shifts. The city getting to her. Nothing to do with me. I told myself that, and I left and I went back to Brighton. And the calls continued, and I kept meaning to sort the timing, and kept finding reasons why it wasn't quite right yet. 3 months after the third visit, the calls got slightly shorter. She was always there for them, always warm. But she'd wrap them up a little sooner, say she had an early start, say she was tired. I told myself she's tired. That's all it is. The Sunday morning calls dropped to every other Sunday. Then occasional. And I kept meaning to ring her and sort it, kept meaning to book the flight. Kept meaning to have the conversation where I said what I actually felt, instead of telling her about the shop, and the weeks kept going and the weeks kept going, and I kept telling myself there was still time to get this right. There is a specific quality to something that was almost right and then slips to wrong. You know it the moment it happens. Everything in you knows. I just didn't want to know it, so I didn't look at it directly. I kept it in my peripheral vision where it couldn't quite resolve into a shape I'd have to respond to. And then I booked a flight. 4 months of nearly booking it. And then one Tuesday evening after closing up the shop, ink on my hands, the smell of solvent in the air, I just booked it. Didn't message her to say I was coming. Thought I'd surprise her. Thought I'd walk into that lobby and see her face, and it would all come clear, and I'd say the thing I'd been not saying for 2.5 years. I landed in Cebu on a Thursday morning. The hotel near Colon Street was being renovated. Scaffolding up the front, the lobby gutted. A sign on the door with a number for a sister property. I stood on the pavements in the heat and the noise with my bag and looked at the scaffolding and thought, of course, I booked somewhere else, closer to the waterfront. Perfectly fine, just not the right hotel. That evening I went to the bar we'd sat in on the second visit, the roof terrace place near the waterfront. Thought I'd message her and say I was here, come and find me. I was standing at the bar waiting to order when someone touched my arm. Dennis, an Australian who'd been at the same bar on the second trip. Expat, lived in Cebu. We talked for an hour about nothing much. He recognised me, genuinely pleased, pulled up a stool. We talked. He asked how long I was staying, asked about Brighton, asked about the shop. And then, the way you ask after someone you've met once, easy and unloaded, he said, "How's Grace? You still in touch with her?" I said, "Yeah, I'm actually hoping to see her tomorrow." And Dennis looked at me with a slightly different expression. Not uncomfortable. Just recalibrating. The face of a man who's realised he might be the wrong person to be delivering information he didn't know he was carrying. He said, "Oh, you didn't know." I kept my face exactly right, the way you hold a colour proof steady under the light. Very still, very level. I said, "No what?" He said she got engaged. Few months back. Filipino lad, works in shipping. I met him once, seemed solid. Good for her, I thought. She'd been on her own a while. Then he signalled the barman and asked what I was drinking. Dennis ordered another round and started talking about something else. A planning dispute with his landlord. Some issue with a neighbouring building. His voice kept going and I kept my face in the right position and made the right sounds at the right intervals. And inside I was completely still, in the way that isn't calm. The way that's the opposite of calm. The way that's everything pressing inward, from all directions at once and nowhere for any of it to go. I drank the beer, ordered another, sat with Dennis for another hour, and heard almost nothing he said. When he left, I stayed. The roof terrace emptied gradually around me. Couples, groups, a table of expats who knew each other well, the easy, loud shorthand of people with shared history, the harbour below going dark except for the container ships and the lights along the waterfront, and the reflection of all of it in the black water shifting slowly with the tide. The air was warm and thick and smelled of the sea, and something frying from the street food stalls below, and somewhere behind me, someone's phone was playing music too quietly to identify. Just a pulse of it. Just the ghost of a song. I sat with it. With the information. Turned it over the way you turn a proof over in good light, looking at it from every angle, trying to see it accurately. She was engaged. Someone from here. Someone who lived in this city. In her city. Who would be there on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and every other unremarkable day that I'd spent 2.5 years promising myself I'd eventually show up for. A lad who works in shipping. Solid, Dennis said. Good for her. I thought about the Sunday morning calls. The way she'd wrap them up a little sooner towards the end. The early starts she'd mentioned. The tiredness. I told myself she was tired. She wasn't tired. She was someone making a decision about her own life with the information available to her, which was 2.5 years of half promises, and rescheduled flights, and a man in Brighton who talked about his printer when she asked him something that wasn't about the printer at all. She'd made the only sensible decision. That's what I kept coming back to, sitting on that roof above Cebu, with the warm air on my face and the music from someone's phone behind me. She'd waited. She'd been present for every call, every visit, every Sunday morning. She'd rearranged a day off without being asked and said nothing about rearranging it. She'd given me every possible opening to say the thing I was clearly feeling and clearly not saying. And at some point, quietly, with no drama and no ultimatum, she'd simply decided to stop waiting for something that wasn't coming. I couldn't be angry, couldn't even be sad in a clean way. It was a more complicated thing than sad. It was the particular weight of a mistake that nobody made loudly. No betrayal, no cruelty. Just a slow accumulation of not quite enough, not quite yet. Just give me a bit more time until time ran out in the most ordinary possible way, and someone else was there when it did. The next morning I walked. I didn't message her, didn't ring. Couldn't work out what I'd say that wasn't just making it about me, my feeling, my loss, my realisation that had arrived about 18 months too late. She didn't need that. She was engaged to someone solid, and she was getting on with her life, and me turning up in her messages to process my regret would have been one more version of the thing I'd always done, which was making my own comfort the thing that mattered most. So I walked instead. The market she'd taken me to on the second trip. Saturday morning, the same tight corridors, the smell of raw fish and cut mango hitting you at the entrance. The flower stall with its buckets of colour, the women behind the stalls calling out in Cebuano, the whole place alive and specific and hers. I walked through it slowly, bought nothing, just let it be what it was. The streets near the basilica, the cold stone smell coming through the open doors, the candles guttering in a draught from somewhere, a woman praying in a pew near the front with the particular stillness of someone in genuine conversation with something. I sat in the back for a while, not praying, just sitting in the cool and the quiet and the smell of old stone and spent wax. The pier where the Tanig place was, still there, same banana leaf, same vinegar and chili, same white fish that tasted like the sea it had come from. I ate it alone and looked at the harbour and the pump boats and the light coming off the water, and it tasted exactly the same as the first time and completely different. That's the thing about places that have a person in them. When the person is gone, the place keeps being itself. The fish is still good. The light still does the same thing in the evenings. The city keeps its texture, keeps its layers, keeps its complete indifference to whether you're having a good time or not. None of it changes. You just move through it differently, carrying something now that you weren't carrying before. I stayed 4 days, considered messaging her every one of them, and didn't. On the last evening, I went back to the roof terrace. Different table, ordered 1 beer and drank it slowly, and watched the container ships and thought about a woman who said, "I know," with complete self-possession, and meant it every single time. I went home. The shop was as I'd left it. The Roland printer, the laminator, the cutting table with its 18 years of blade marks. I opened up on the Monday morning and loaded a job and stood at the machine and listened to it run and smelled the ink and the heat. And Grace had been right. It smelled like actual work, and there was nothing wrong with that. I think about the rearranged day off, her cousin's table in the hills, the cool air up there, the kids on the concrete yard, her voice low beside me, making sure I wasn't lost. When are you coming back? The second visit, the roof terrace, the container ship moving across the dark, and her beer sitting barely touched. I think about what I said instead of the thing I should have said. The shop runs fine, the work is good. Friday evenings, my back knows about it, same as always. I'm not broken. I'm not a wreck. I'm just a 54-year-old man in Brighton who had a precise eye for everything, except the one thing that actually mattered. And by the time I looked at it properly, the light had changed, and the moment was gone, and what was right had become something I'd have to learn to live without. Almost right isn't right. I knew that better than anyone. This is my expat stories. Sometimes the one that got away didn't leave, she just stopped waiting. And the silence where an answer should have been was all the answer she needed.